talks of Major League Baseball. We'll start with the life and death of one of our favorite people, Bob Uecker. Passes away at the age of 90.
Pour one out. Pour a couple out.
Yeah.
Pour a couple out.
mean,
He would want you to.
Absolutely.
Well, he'd want you to drink it more than he'd want you to pour it out. But
A Miller Lite.
A Miller Lite. Pour one out for him. There's so many. I think there's like 2 or 3 generations that know him. Some as a baseball player, some as an actor and doing television sitcoms, and then as a broadcaster in the movie Major League.
Yeah, that's me.
And then, a Hall of Fame broadcaster for the Milwaukee Brewers.
I did not know that until a few years ago. You know him a lot different than Kurt and I. Kurt is a little bit older than me. You're a little bit older than Kurt. Now, Kurt and I already had the conversation that Mr. Belvedere was not a part of our households. Like, we knew of the show.
Youngsters. You knew of the show, but your sitcoms were probably a decade later than Mr. Belvedere.
Correct. Now, my baseball childhood from 5th grade till probably high school, man, was Major League 2. Like, I thought this was the guy that's the play-by-play for Major League. And then, the Belvedere stuff, I think, came from my parents. The Miller Lite commercials came from my time in North Carolina with all my old-timer listeners knowing it that way. And then really, I would say a couple of years out of college was the first time that it was brought to my attention that this guy actually played baseball. And then I started seeing the Johnny Carson clips on YouTube. And then I started realizing how funny this dude was. And that really Major League, that was not acting. That was just him being him.
That's how he did every game.
And then I realized he does really do that. He's the Brewers guy. Yeah. And then I met Rob Dibble, and I found out a little bit more from the Brewers time that you had with them. Like, you guys were boys. You guys were the nasty boys of the clean club.
Well,
that's the way I would look at it.
So when I was in Milwaukee, it was what they call the dry team. You're in the beer capital of the country, and where they made, 5-6 different types of beer. I know, Miller beer was made there, and Old Milwaukee, and Old Style, and all. Yeah. And they had all
Pabst.
these Pabst. Yeah, I drove by them every day on my way to the ballpark.
Delicious.
Then you get there, and it's like, we're not going to have beer in the clubhouse.
What?
So I'd been with the Reds for 7 seasons, and I was with the White Sox, and then, came over to the Brewers mid-season. So I get in there, and, quickly, I have a lot of friends in there. Joe Oliver's on the team, and guys that I've already played with, and, Bill Wegman, and guys that I played in the minor leagues in Puerto Rico with and stuff like that. Mike Fetters was the closer.
Awesome.
Mike and I were good friends.
Oh, yeah.
Just so many great guys on there. Kevin Seitzer, it's just so one great player after another. The guy that I fought when I was on the White Sox, Pat Listash, and I became great friends. Because they were kind enough to put my locker next to his the first day I was on the Brewers.
They knew.
Quickly, the first day, and here's the thing, meeting Hawk Harrelson on the White Sox is just, Bob Uecker's a funnier version of Hawk Harrelson. Hawk Harrelson was a great player, became a great broadcaster, and was just like part of the team. He comes with the team. It's like a hood ornament on your car. It's never going to leave. It's going to be there every day, right?
Yeah,
that's Bob Uecker.
Put it. Yeah.
So Bob Uecker, the first day I'm there, I'm on the road, and I actually joined the Brewers in the White Sox stadium, and then we would go to Milwaukee. So I get there, and I'm like, there's no beer. There's no smoking, no nothing in this clubhouse. It's like, nope, you can't do any of that stuff. I'm like, okay. And then Bob Uecker comes in, and he walks through the clubhouse and through a passage and goes out the back door. I'm like, where's he going? They're like, oh, well, that's where we're going to go hang. And I'm like, and Mike Fetters is like, come on, man. And so we go back there, about half a dozen players. There's Bob Uecker. There's Robin Yount, Hall of Famer. There's Phil Gantner, or not Phil Gantner. I think it's, I don't remember his first name, Gantner. Gorman Thomas, who owned a restaurant there in the building, and then a couple of other broadcasters that did radio. And we sat down, and there was beer brought in, and we sat there for hours and talked. And that's how I was kind of initiated into the Brewers. And from that point on, I was like besties with Bob on the road, in the clubhouse, because I was one of the older players and I knew him from Mr. Belvedere in Major League. And so I kind of had like more in common with him than some of the other guys. Even the coaches were, like Phil Garner was the manager and Tim Foley and some of the other guys. They were always like bang, bang, bang. They're out of there. And it was just like a handful of us that hung. And then for every home game, he drove his Harley in.
Bob Uecker
in his 70s
awesome.
Is driving up on this really nice Softail. It's decked out in blue and gold. It's got his number 9. It's a flame baseball on the gas tank.
Hell yes.
And I'm like, this dude pulls up. Now, I'd already known that Holmgren did that when he was coaching the Packers. And I was like, these guys are cool as hell here in Milwaukee. And from that point on, though, I mean, he couldn't have been nicer like my uncle, kind of personality-wise. But, like, to me, I don't care about what his statistics said as a player. What he did after baseball or during baseball with Johnny Carson, Mr. Belvedere, with being a broadcaster, it was like Joe Nuxall in Cincinnati. They are icons.
Yeah.
They are people are paying to be in the same building with Bob Uecker. They're listening to him on his broadcast during the game. It's like Vince Scully. I've already told you this. During every Dodger game, while I was in the bullpen, because 30,000 or 25,000 people had transistor radios or portable radios and were listening to Vince Scully's call at Dodger Stadium. It was freaky, but it was awesome. And so that was Milwaukee. Milwaukee, half the stadium had Bob Uecker on while the game's going on, and because they loved him that much. So it wasn't even like and we were bad. We were not a good Brewers team. They got better after I left. But while I was there, they were not good. But Bob Uecker was always good and always personable and always like Harry Carey and your Cubs. He was a bigger than life force with the Brewers. Up right now, he was working last year.
Yep.
Up until he passes.
So we got a lot of Bob Uecker cuts here for the people.
Oh, good.
Jim Gantner.
Jim Gantner.
Yeah. I looked that up real quick while you're saying that.
And he
story.
was a pistol.
It looks like it.
Oh my God.
All right, Kurt, there's a couple of major leagues, I think, stacked on top.
Harry Doyle.
Yeah, so this is Harry Doyle. This is the Bob Uecker I grew up with as such a fan of this major league 1 and 2. These were commonly copied, imitated. We learned the lines to say to each other on the baseball diamond. So here's,
Absolutely.
I don't know which order they're in. I'll just let you rip them off here.
One's labeled, is it cut?
Does it say GD?
Yeah.
The goddamn? Yeah, go ahead and play that. We'll let it play here on these airwaves.
So the Tribe drops its 3rd straight on this trip, 6-1 to the Rangers. For the Indians, 1 run on, 1 hit. That's all. We got 1 goddamn hit.
You can't say goddamn on the air.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
Things have changed, and you can. It's fine. Yeah. But yes, that was
in the 80s you couldn't.
That was Major League 1.
That's
I do
the first
believe.
Major League. Absolutely.
Now, this is from Major League 2, and this is something. I had a friend that learned this whole speech, and when someone would get lifted from the mound, he would say this as Bob Uecker as you're walking back to the dugout, and he won't be done with it by the time you sit your butt down. And I could hear it in the outfield. That's how good he was at this imitation, but this is one of my faves.
The runner at second. Here's the pitch to Shaw. Swung on and belted to deep right field. Back goes Serrano. That baby is out of here. That looked like the Terminator, only slower. Maybe it was his out-of-stater, or it could have been the hibernator. That baby is definitely going away for the winter. Whatever, for Vaughn, it might be see you later. He's probably going to become a spectator.
We would say that to people all the time. You're probably going to become a spectator.
That was Major League 2 when Ricky Vaughn becomes like a star.
Oh, yeah.
And then he forgets how to pitch.
Exactly.
But he names every one of his pitches.
Super hot.
Kind of like some of these major leaguers today.
A little bit.
Yeah.
We'll never know what's going to happen when you give somebody $1 million.
Yeah, like the ghost changeup or whatever the hell, what's his face throws.
What is that? Ghost ball, ghost curve.
It's a ghost pepper.
It's a ghost pepper pitch is what it is.
Ghost pepper.
All right, here's some actual Bob Uecker, not Harry Doyle. This is, I think, the first time that the Brewers, with Bob Uecker calling, go to play in the ALCS.
The arm is back. Here he comes. 1-2. Swing and a miss. Goodbye, Detroit. Hello, New York. Hi, Raleigh Fingers. What a job he is being mobbed by Milwaukee will face New York for the American League Eastern Division Championship.
I think
that's the Brew Crew of '82.
right, and that's the heyday you're talking about. Like
Norman
when,
Thomas,
when people
Raleigh
are
Fingers,
listening.
Harvey.
Harvey
Harvey's-
Wallbangers.
Yeah, Harvey's Wallbangers.
Yep.
Listening to the game on top of watching the game when you're in the ballpark. I think this next one is one Kurt found, or maybe Bob Joyce had found. This is his final call from this year. Same kind of situation. Brewers end up winning the division.
Well, New York
Oh, it's when Yankees beat
down.
the Brewers.
They did
Or
it.
Mets, sorry, Mets.
And the Crew will have it end here tonight.
Really a crushing end to what was a fabulous season for the Milwaukee Brewers.
I'm telling you, that one had some sting on it.
That was the final call of Bob Uecker in the booth for the Brewers. So, yeah, New York Mets this season beat the Brewers to move on in the playoffs. Final one I put in there is from the Hall of Fame. And you guys were saying the Ford Frick Award.
So there's awards for broadcasters on TV, and then the Ford Frick is for the best radio announcers that go into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame.
And for context, how good of a baseball player was Bob Uecker?
Not good at all.
Not good at all.
No, he was not good.
Okay. He was a catcher, right?
He was a backup catcher.
Backup catcher.
And so he always joked about how bad he was. He was on Johnny Carson like over 200 times. He was one of Johnny Carson's favorites because every time he came on there, he was funnier and funnier and funnier just by being Bob Uecker. He wasn't like a comedian.
The knuckleball, it was so funny that, well, I found that the easiest way to catch knuckleball is just wait for it to stop rolling.
Yeah, go back to the backstop and pick it up. Yep.
So this is his the end of, or really kind of the middle and the end of his speech, getting honored. I think 2003 is the year that he gets the Ford Frick Award at the Baseball Hall of Fame. Everyone is in the audience. George H.W. Bush is in the audience. I saw Bob Costas in the audience. Like, it's a who's who of sports and just figures in the United States in the audience here when Bob Uecker speaks.
Of all the things that I've done, this has always been number one, baseball. The commercials, the films, the television series. I could never wait for everything to get over to get back to baseball. I still, and this is not sour grapes by any means, still think I should have gone in as a player. Thank you. Thank you very much. There it is, boys. The proof is in the pudding. And to all of you baseball fans around America and any place else, for your letters, your thoughts, your kindness for all of these years. It's been a great run, but number one has always been baseball for me. No matter what else I ever did, baseball was the only way I wanted to go. I thank you very much for your attention today. Thank you for having me, and congratulations to everybody here. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
So I remember watching the speech. He never had notes like at that speech or a lot of other things he did. He just totally, was a great speaker. And like I said, on Johnny Carson, I don't think he wrote jokes. I think he just went out there and was himself. I mean, he's just an amazing human. As a player, 6 years, career 200 hitter, never played more than 80 games in a season as a backup catcher. I think he got 200 plate appearances one year, hit 208 with 7 home runs and 30 RBI. But,
And there you go.
Listen, he made the most of what God gave him. And like I said, it was because he was a larger than life personality. Johnny Bench talked about this today on X, and I would have anybody go, listen to his Hall of Fame speech because he thanks everybody. He never takes, very, very humble man. Johnny talks about how much, like Johnny Bench, one of the greatest catchers of all time, loved Uecker. There's a picture that Johnny just put on X. It's Carlton Fisk, Johnny, Pudge Rodriguez, and Uecker. And Uecker's still chapped that he didn't go in as a player. You know, I mean, he knows he wasn't a good player, but he's still in his fashion made you think, you know what, maybe he should have gone in as a player. Maybe it's not all about no. I mean, he made you think about things. But he's just such a beautiful human being. So he dies at the age of 90, but he'll be with us for a long, long time. A lot of his stuff that, like he said, movies, television, the Miller Lite commercials are amazing. I mean, he was one of the best of all of the, people that did those, just because, they were probably like, you know what are you doing this commercial? Well, why don't I, kind of make fun of how bad of a career I had by thinking, first I'm going to be in the front row, because his first one, I think he does, he's sitting in the front row, and they're like, you know what, Mr. Uecker, those aren't your seats. And the next time you see him, he's in the top row in the third deck. And he's like, whoa, must be in the front row. And just he always was self-deprecating. And that's the beautiful thing about him, is he never thought he was as wonderful as he really was. And he always treated everybody like you were the most wonderful person in the room.
Did he start just a bit outside?
Yeah, that's him. That's because that's Ricky Vaughn. That's Charlie Sheen. So let me preface this by saying Charlie Sheen was a big Reds fan. While they were filming Major League, that's when he was with us a lot with the Dodgers. He was at Dodger Stadium. So every time we went west, or even in Cincinnati, there's always Charlie Sheen. He'd be at the field. We didn't know he was filming a movie. We just like, okay, why is this guy here all the time? He was gaining stuff for the movie. Not the Nasty Boys per se, but kind of the feel of the bullpen. He was always with us. He was always shagging in the outfield. He was always around us. And so knowing that, then knowing the parties that we went to Charlie Sheen's house, Major League came out, and it kind of all ties together of that's what these guys do, and Tom Selleck, spring training with the Tigers, hung out with us all the time in the clubhouse with the Reds. We went out to dinner with him multiple times because my agent was his agent.
Mr. Baseball.
Yeah, Mr. Baseball. So he was filming Mr. Baseball. We had no idea.
Awesome. Love that.
Another one, Tom Selleck's filming Lassiter in Cincinnati, had shaved the famous mustache off. Comes in the clubhouse just hanging out. He's there for like 2 months. You're like, why is this guy here every home game? You have no idea he's filming a movie, but he's a movie star. But Bob Uecker's the same way. You never knew Bob Uecker was as famous, especially when you were in Milwaukee, because Bob was just such a sweetheart of a guy. That's the thing that I want people to understand is like, all these people are like, Bob. Bob's kind of like Harry. Harry had his restaurant. Harry had all the things he did. And Harry, like I've said this before, Harry always made me feel special. He was gaining nuggets for him to do the game, but he at the same time was such a respectful person from, listen, I just said, Uecker was born in 1934. Harry Carey was probably born in the 20s or 30s. There was a different respect factor, even from our elders, that they gave us as players, because they understood the players deserved that kind of respect. And so that's what blew me away. Jack Buck, Harry Carey, Ernie Harwell, all of these guys, Vince Scully, when you were around them, it was a tremendous experience for us, but they made it seem like it was a better experience for them.
Bob Uecker, 1934 to 2025. There's some really good stuff on MLB.com. It seems like they were really prepared for the passing of Bob Uecker, because they've got a lot of stories from other major leaguers out there right now, a lot of videos from the past. I'm seeing a picture of him when he first got into the big leagues. Like, this guy's just a salt of the earth, man. And like he said in that Hall of Fame speech, really loved the game more than anything. There is some baseball news out there and some local baseball news out there. I see the Mets are bringing Winker back for 2025.
So, I
That's
don't know
news.
if we've talked about some of this stuff. And let me just talk about the Mets for a second, because they bring back Jesse Winker, 1 year, $7.5 million. They had brought Sean Manaea back as a pitcher, 3-year deal. Yep. Frankie Montas, a 2-year deal. Clay Holmes, 3-year deal. So they've done a lot of work besides the Juan Soto signing. The one that I'm reading about right now, which I never believe until they're signed on some other team, that things are breaking down between the Mets and Alonso. But the reason why I say that is they'll usually say that at the 9th hour, hoping for a deal, but saying, okay, well, you know what, we're going somewhere else unless you give us what we're looking for or close to it.
Move over Shohei Ohtani. Hello, Shotaro Mori. Oakland A's just signed 18-year-old two-way player to a $1.5 million Triple-A deal. Yeah, 18 years old. He's going to start in Triple-A or maybe even somewhere else in the minors. They're going to take it slow, but he throws a 94-mile-an-hour fastball, and he hit 45 home runs last year in some kind of high school that he went to. Two-way player. Look out, Shohei. Hello, Shataro. Let's go, A's.
We even know where he's playing? I mean,
did I say field? Oakland? I didn't mean if I said
Oakland.
Did I? I just meant the A's. They're nothing.
Yeah,
they're
just the Athletics, right?
Just the Athletics.
They don't want to be Oakland,
they have
Sacramento,
no city.
Vegas. They don't have a city.
They're the Gypsy A's. Is that what we're going to do? Gypsies.
I like the Gypsies better than the A's.
I do too.
The Gypsies.
The Gypsies. So there you go, Shatara Mori. We'll find out if this is for real. We didn't believe Shohei Ohtani either when we first heard about it. We didn't think it was going to last either when he first started doing it. And now look at us.
Yeah, he's had 2 Tommy John surgeries in 5 years.
Well, Shatara, 0 so far. So
because
one up for him.
The problem is, I know it's exciting for people to watch, but there's so much damage you do to your arm as a pitcher as opposed to the everyday players. And
swinging. You mean swinging?
Swinging, throwing like bullpens.
When I throw 50 pitches and then I go do a BP, that BP is going to hurt more than any other BP because I threw the 50 pitches.
If you were swinging a sledgehammer, that was your profession, you would wear out your joints. So just look at it like that. So, they used to call that the hammer for a breaking ball. Now he's bringing the hammer on you, right? Because of that downward motion. So just think about that. Now you look at Shohei as a right-handed pitcher. He's a left-handed hitter. When you snap that elbow constantly, it's doing nothing but damage. It might not be. It could be microscopic to the naked eye, but right. He's snapping that joint, snapping the wrist, and so there's always going to be damage. You need recovery, and then you're like, well, you know what? Every 5th day we want you to go throw 100 pitches. Okay, well that's 30 long tosses. That's 30 to 50 warm-up pitches. That's the 100 in the game, but that's also another 50 in between innings. All right, even if I'll give you 40 or 30 in between, you're still talking 200 more snaps of the elbow, and that's what's wearing Shohei out. So listen, 18. I don't care how old the kid is. Once you sign up now you're doing this every 5 days. You're swinging the bat all the time. Let's just say you get 600 at bats. Think of the 600 at bats, how many times you're going to swing in those 600 at bats.
Right.
Then you're going to take batting practice. Then you're going to hit off the tee. So it's tens of thousands of snaps on those elbows. And that's what I think the wearing out process. I'm not worried about the actual playing. That's great. Let the guy play 2 ways. It's when you get to a certain point, even with Shohei, and you start saying, well, we're paying this guy $700 million, and the best of ability is availability. Last year, he didn't pitch. This year, you want him to pitch and play the field or DH. You're putting a lot on that body. And as he gets older, I think he's going to break down more.
We'll see. We'll see what happens with him and Shataro. One quick story before we go to break. The Red Sox yesterday visited a bunch of schools in the area, just some elementary schools, South Lawrence East Elementary. They went to Lawrence High School and also East Boston High School. I know you used to do that with the Reds all the time in the offseason. It's just really cool. I always like
to shout caravan.
I always like to shout out the good deeds of some of these pro athletes. A lot of people don't think that they do stuff like this, but the Boston Red Sox, man, they're always doing stuff like this.
Oh, they're one of the best in the community.
I mean, when it comes to the marathon that they run that our man John Ashmead was a part of a couple of years ago.
Well, the Jimmy Fund, the hospitals, all the stuff that they do is spectacular.
Jimmy Fund is just a spectacular event that they put on, and they've been such a big part of that. But they're running around schools now in Boston, just saying hello, nothing special, just making kids smile, man. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, this is the part of year where they do caravans and they'll show up in smaller towns and smaller settings and maybe a mall or maybe a restaurant, and there's a dozen of them, and coaches and former players and stuff. And even when I was working for the Nationals, every year they would invite me to do that. And the Reds right now, a lot of these teams, the old timers are at their fantasy camps. So there's always something pretty much going on in the major leagues, whether or not it's, to let the average fan kind of feel like they're part of the team.